Before I get into this video, I want to say, I know I'm late. I know that the hype train for Encanto has passed, and I know that no one probably cares, but I want to make this video anyway because it's a movie that I have come to care a lot about, whether that is bad or whether that is good, because there are, I want to say, equal amounts of bad and good in this movie. Probably the good outweighs the bad, but the bad is still there. Now let me explain a little bit further. One thing I want to preface is saying Disney movies always have a formula. There's always the conflict, the main character who is not perfect, and there's always that flaw. Cinderella was the servant girl, and then she became a princess. One of the things that they used to do in some of the old Disney movies that I wish they brought back was death. Hear me out. Death brings out emotion in everybody. Think back to the first time you saw Bambi. Think back to the first time you saw The Lion King. Or even the first 15 minutes of Up. It really hit you hard because it was like, wow, this is real. This happens. But in Encanto, they really brought back that concept of what death is and how serious and sad it is. And it really made that movie so much more emotional for me at the end. And then they ruined it in the last 3 minutes. But I'll get to that. This video will have spoilers. So the first thing I want to dive into this movie is what it tried to do differently. And that is the characters. The entire family of Madrigal. There were a lot of characters, and that first song was way too fast for me to process everything at first. But I want to focus in on some of these characters. Now, in terms of the main family, I did not like most of them. I liked Mirabelle, I liked Bruno, and I liked Antonio, and that was it. Later in the movie, I warmed up to Luisa after her song. The mom was fine, the dad was fine, but people were just not very rememberable in the family for me. Whoa, oh my goodness, what was his name? Camilo. He was funny, but I didn't really like him the first time I watched the movie. The only time I ended up liking him was after seeing the enormous amounts of fan edits that were constantly popping up on my TikTok and my YouTube page. I'm like, oh yeah, he is kind of got a cool design, he's got a cool power, he's pretty cool. But he didn't really have a main plot in the movie, so when you first watch it, it's like, oh, okay, I don't really care about most of these characters. Mirabelle is a great protagonist. Another thing I want to address is that Mirabelle does not have a conventionally attractive design. You think of these recent 3D Disney movies, Rapunzel, you think of Anna and Elsa, you think of Moana. They all kind of have the same face, and it gets a little boring. But Mirabelle has something completely different. She's not conventionally attractive, but I think she's adorable. I think she is so misunderstood. I just think she's a great protagonist. Now, that typical conventionally attractive, Disney princess type girl is Isabella. I don't understand why people defend Isabella. I'll get into this a little bit later, but she has a song where she expresses all of her emotions and how she's been trying to do everything she can for the family and how she's not selfish at all and how she's looking to improve the family and she doesn't care about herself and she's just trying to be perfect all the time for abuela. But, and this is a very, very big but, she sucks. She's so mean to Mirabelle. And for what? I get they're sisters and they can bicker. Luisa doesn't bicker with her and they're all sisters. Mirabelle is literally just cast aside by Isabelle for most of the movie, and it is her fault for everything going wrong. And I can say the same thing about Tia Peppa. I can say the same thing about Abuela. And the people in this movie are just mean, so I don't understand the defense behind some of these characters. It's fine that they're like that, but why does Mirabelle have to settle? In what is it? What is the song called? I don't know. It's the most forgettable song in the movie. The one that Isabelle has where she's swinging around on flowers. What else can I do? That one. so forgettable. And for some reason, she's like, I'm actually, like, going through a really hard time. And she never apologizes. Mirabelle is just pushed around this entire movie by the whole family. Louise is fine. She has, like, her moment, like her 5-minute moment, and then for the rest of the movie she kind of disappears and just cries. And in terms of the other minor characters, there's only one person outside of the family that really struck me as important, and obviously that was Mariano, who was trying to get in the family, if you know what I'm saying. And why did they have to make him look exactly like Markiplier? I don't understand what is happening in these recent animated movies. Why do they all look like this? Is Markiplier the ideal man? I don't understand. It's very funny though. I enjoy his little walk. I enjoy his little design. Very, very much a heartthrob amongst the ladies. Let me delve a little bit more into what the plot of this movie is. I just crossed my legs, so I feel like a person about to get to business. The plot is fine. The thing that really bothers me is the script. The jokes are old. I feel like I've heard them a million times before in past Disney movies and Pixar movies and just animated movies in general. They're very safe jokes. They're very, very Disney cookie cutter jokes and very Disney cookie cutter dialogue. In terms of the actual plot, let's get back to the story. At first, I thought it was very, very reminiscent of Coco in terms of, the Spanish family, and then there's the one outsider who's not accepted into the family norm, who wants to be a little bit different, or who's trying to be like the family but just doesn't fit in, and the over-controlling abuela. And then you obviously have that supernatural element where things can happen, but it just works out in the end. The thing that I appreciate about Encanto, about the plot, that's different from Coco and most other Disney movies, is that there's not an actual villain. Encanto is the only one that stands out to me right now where there's not an actual villain that got, banished. Like Frozen, you think of Hans. Sucks. The breath of fresh air of Encanto is just the character development. The villain, quote unquote, of the movie is Grandma, Abuela. She's not evil. I don't like her, but she's not evil. She has major, major character development. Spoiler warning, at the end of the movie, the casita collapses. They lose everything, which is exactly the last thing that Abuela did not want to happen. And this is where the part of the movie that I mentioned that I'm so glad they brought back: death. They harped in on how he died. They dedicated a whole song, a whole few minutes to just how he died, and the emotion behind Abuela in that scene with her 3 triplet babies. She was lost. She literally needed a miracle. I haven't been moved by a scene in a movie in that long, because they animated her very well. That looked like a really, really real crying scene. She is collapsed to the ground, scream crying, and that hits real hard. Even though I mentioned I don't like Abuela, I really don't. It's sad. And after seeing that, and after Mirabelle seeing that story, they were able to finally understand each other, and there wasn't really a villain. They just needed character development. And that's what really was a breath of fresh air. It really was beautiful at the end. And I really liked the last song where they rebuild everything. The casita fell. Everybody loses their powers, their gifts, and they have to rebuild it and be a family, be an actual family, and be on the same level, and be humbled, and bring Bruno back. And it wasn't Bruno's fault. We don't talk about Bruno, but we need to talk about Bruno because it wasn't his fault, and he came back and everybody hugged, and it was good, happy ending. And then they rebuilt the house, and it was great. And that's where it should have ended. And then, of course, Casita comes back to life, which is fine. Please, bring the Casita back to life. Because the Casita was the funniest part of the whole movie. No one else's dialogue could even come close. But that's where it should have stopped. Everybody gets their powers back. Why? No one deserves their powers. Like, put them away. They give them such huge egos. Like, yeah, they help the town, but they just proved in that last song that they don't need the gifts to be a family. They kept their gifts because when they eventually make attractions at Disney World and Disneyland and everywhere, the characters need to keep having their powers because why wouldn't they? It's the magic. That's what they market. That's what the sequel's for. Anyway, the end makes me so mad. It was such a missed opportunity. Why they couldn't get past the fact that they always need a happy ending. Ugh. That's pretty much all I have to say about Encanto. I really needed to get that out there. The movie has been plaguing me with the soundtrack in my mind. Just a quick touch on the soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was great. I thought an equal amount of the story was told through the soundtrack and the actual screenwriting. There were parts that, kept the Disney formula and songs that went more traditional Spanish culture and style, and I really like that. Lin-Manuel is a great songwriter and a great storyteller in his music as well, and that really showed in the soundtrack. That's about it. I'm about to go. I have to go tell somebody about a little somebody that we don't talk about. Okay, bye.